Okay, welcome to your next video on the Athlete ATP or the Athlete Annual Training Plan. As we discussed in the coaching PowerPoint on the Athlete ATP, this is your roadmap. This is your guide. This is where you will keep all your information for your athlete. And I cannot stress enough that if you do this properly and if you take your time completing this a couple times a year, that it will save you hours worth of work later. Remember, this is a living, breathing document. The decisions you make in January don't necessarily hold true in September, but it should be reviewed and you keep your eye on it throughout the season. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into Dropbox. You're going to locate the file 2015 Athlete ATP. Open it up. Go to the first tab. The first thing you want to do is you want to come in and you want to save it as the athlete that you are working on. So in this case, we'll call him Bob Smith. So Bob Smith 2015. That way you're not writing over the master file. It happens. You will write over it from time to time. But this is a way to come in and just go ahead and have your unique file for Bob. The first tab is your profile tab. Has all your very basic information, the previous year's time, so that you can recall that quickly. And then the very important part, which is their schedule. Not everybody works an easy 9 to 5 and has mornings and evenings open. Some people go to church on Sundays, so they might be off here. They might completely have Thursday off, and they might on Wednesdays work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This is where you would include all that information. I probably use this each and every week when I'm working on an athlete to just remind me of what their schedule and limitations are. The second tab is the goals. This is a place where you can complete it. This is somewhat optional because there are other spots in the ATP where you will put this. Place to put what their racing goals are, what their personal goals are, and then an area for you as the coach to always come in and add additional things. So for instance, you might say Bob needs swim technique work or struggled in first open water race. So you can just kind of keep track of things as you progress through. The season planner is right here. This is what we did a whole PowerPoint on and how to complete this. And again, if done properly, this is a great indication of the work that you put in for an athlete and will be your roadmap. So if I was to pull up, for instance, an athlete right now where I have a good ATP done, we can see what it looks like. So here's one gentleman's ATP. So what this does is this has all his swimming training, all his bike run, what phases I have him in, and then what my goals are for this period of time. So when I go into Training Peaks, for instance, if I go into Training Peaks for June 22nd, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm giving him high intensity swimming. We're doing base swimming. We're swimming at about 3,500. That's what my coaching jargon notes mean. For his bike, I know that we're doing a very high intensity CP20, CP5 interval. We're also doing a 90% interval. And here's my indication that I'm going to give him a 4-hour tempo run. And then for my run here, we're doing long runs, a lot of tempo work. This tells me where I'm going. So when I open Training Peaks, I know what to put in there. Combined with the schedule, Training Peaks should not take me for this particular athlete to build out a couple weeks more than about 20 minutes because I've already made these decisions. However, if I'm in Training Peaks and this is what it looks like, and all I know is that over here he has Ironman Florida, then I'm having to make all these individual decisions throughout Training Peaks each and every week, and that becomes very, very painful. The next set of tabs are your critical swim speeds, your critical power, your critical velocity, and your MLSS. For more information on this, you should consult the Predictors of Performance PowerPoint that we did, but I'll give you a very quick rundown. Here is where you insert their times and their distances. So a 400 and an 800, you'll enter their times. Generally, the time goes in as hours, minutes, seconds. It will tell you what their pace is, and it'll create what their critical swim speed is. Input the critical swim speed here, and it will give you some predictors. It'll give you their paces. If you want to look at what the regression is, which was how much they slowed down between one test and the second test, input those times here. The most important thing that's on to me, for me, the critical swim speed is the history. I like to keep track of all the testing. So you may conduct 4 tests, 5 tests, 3 tests a year. It's important that you keep up with the dates on which you did it, as well as what progress they may or may not be making. Critical bike is very similar. You put how long the test was, usually 5 and 20 minutes for a power test, what their watts were, what their body weight is. It'll calculate what their kilograms per watt is, what their kilograms body weight is. It'll give you the critical power here. It'll give you zones. I tend to like to use percentages because I think athletes find it very easy to use. It'll give you some parameters for racing. And then again, I like to track their history as well as set any goals. So for instance, if they were 210 watts at the beginning of the season, I might set the goal that by end of the season, I want them to be at 231 watts, and I know that that's a bump of 10%. Critical velocity is very similar. How long the test was in terms of distance, how long it was in terms of durations, it gives you the critical velocity. Then it gives you your training zones. Insert your critical velocity here, and it then gives you some predictors. I also have built this out to include 5%, 8%, 10%. This predictor, the first predictor, is really under the most ideal circumstances, meaning they were really well trained for a half marathon and they had a really good day out there. They should be able to run about this time. I generally find athletes run between 1 and 5%. If they're running 10% off of their goals, either we need to retest or figure out what went wrong in that race. So again, run goals can be inputted here. History can be inputted there. The last tab is your maximum lactate steady state, both for the bike and for the run. You just simply come in and enter what their testing was for, if you just did a 5-minute heart rate test, then it will automatically calculate that, as I just took the formula out. And there you go. So it gives you their MLSS, gives you their training zones that correspond to these percentages. So the reason it's important to keep all the testing information in here is twofold. One, it allows you to use as a quick reference, but it also allows you to use this document when you're into training peaks. So for instance, if I have an athlete who I gave a workout to that gave them 3 by 10 minutes at 90% power, then I know that those 10-minute intervals should be somewhere around 190 watts. So if I went into training peaks, I can pull up their intervals and say, okay, wow, look, here's their first 10-minute interval. Training peaks will tell me they did that at 192 watts. Then I can spot check, great. If I see that they did their second interval at 160 watts, then I'm going to come over here and say, I wonder why they held it only about 77%. The same can be done with here under critical velocity. If they were supposed to be doing a run at M pace, I can come over here and say that it should be somewhere between 9 and 9:45. Maybe I told them I wanted them to run at 9:30, but I don't always remember that information when I sit down to review it. That's why I launched this file, and that's why it's so important to keep this file up to date throughout the season. So this is just a quick primer on the Athlete ATP. Hopefully you will stay on top of this throughout the season. And as I said earlier, I cannot stress how much time this will save you in the long run. So if you have any questions, please review this video. Please review your PowerPoint on this topic. And if there's anything else still lingering, just let me know.